video we made the frame, and what a wonderful frame it is, I hear you cry. And in this video we're going to fit the webbing and the springs. So this is the foundation of everything. Now I'm using this 2-inch jute webbing. There's various different sorts of webbing you can choose from. I rather like this particular style. If you look at the websites, they tell you you've got to use the black and white stuff. Make your own mind up. I like this stuff. I've used it for years and it's always worked very well for me. Now, I've marked across the front equally distant and the same at the back. 6 positions where I want to put this webbing in, and I'm using this tool here, which is a webbing stretcher. I want to get this reasonably tight. That's about the kind of noise you're looking for. And then I'm using proper upholstery tacks. These are 16mm tacks. So as you can see, I leave a piece left over. I'm now going to bend that back and we put some more tacks in. There is a traditional method of putting these tacks in, and there's a good sensible reason for it. What I've done is I've put 3 tacks in a sort of a triangle shape with the 2 nearest the middle. I then bend that over and I put another 3 tacks in, but in the alternative triangle. So I put 1 in the middle, and 2 on the outside. That means I get 6 tacks into here. And that's not a bad way of doing it. So I'm going to go along and put my 6 pieces of webbing that way, and then I'm going to put some webbing that way. I've no idea how many, but we'll work that one out in a minute. So having done our 6 rows in that direction, we now start to go back the other way. You'll notice what I've now done is I've started to weave this in over and under, over and under. So the next one, just like weaving, over and under, over and under, over and under, but as an alternative to the ones at the front. Like that. We'll pin it there, we'll pin it here, and then we'll just keep going. And then when I've done the seat, I'll then start going up the back as well. I won't bother doing the sides, but I'll go up the back, because this is where we're going to have the springs, and we're going to have springs on the back as well. So as you can see, we've got all the webbing in place, so now we're ready to start thinking about the springs. Now there's a couple of things you need to know about springs. These are what we call double cone springs, and as you can see, they start wide, go narrow in the middle, get wide again at the end. And they're a compression spring. They come in different lengths. So these ones are 6-inch springs. On the back I'm going to put shorter springs, and they're 4-inch springs. They also come in different gauges. This is the thickness of the wire that they use in order to make the spring. The lower the number, the thicker the wire. So these ones, which are the ones that go on the seat, which are going to take the most amount of weight, these are the thickest gauge, which is 9 gauge. So they're there to take the weight. The ones on the back, they're not really going to take a lot of weight. We want a little bit of give in it. So these are 12 gauge, so these are quite thin, or relatively thin. I mean, they're still pretty good, and you could use them for seating ones if you wanted, but they'd be very soft and a bit wishy-washy, so it's not recommended. So we'll start on the bottom. And as you can see, I've laid them out here just to sort of see where I want them to go. And I've ended up using 16 springs. You probably could do it with less springs, but why bother? You want a quality product, so it's a bit like when you buy your mattress. You know, the more springs you have in something, the better it is. So we'll use 16 springs. Now the first job to do is to sew these springs in to stop them going anywhere. So I'm using this linen thread. It's sort of a reasonably thick linen thread, and we don't bother with little needles in upholstery. I'm just going to put 4 stitches and if you're clever you do it that the last stitch on this one puts you in a good position to get to the next spring without too much mucking about. My wife, who does embroidery, finds this hilarious, the size of the needles that we use. And she's used to using clever stuff. Now what I've got into the habit of doing is when I get to the last stitch, I tie this one in. The idea is in years to come, should this bit of twine perish, the worst that's going to happen is one string is going to become a bit loose. So I'm just going to now carry on with all the springs, sew all 16 in, and then we're ready to move on to the next job. So here we are with all the springs in place. Now they've all been tied in at the bottom, and as you can see they're not going anywhere at the bottom, but they're all over the place at the top. So what we now need to do is tie them together across the top. And this is so that when you put a piece of material on the top, they don't go all over the place. So I'm using this much thicker twine and I'm tying it in across the top of all of these springs, and I tie every spring individually, get them where I want, try and get the spacing between them about the same, and this ties all the way down to a tack I'll put there at the bottom. And as you can see, that now means they all move together. So what I should do is I should do the same thing that way, and then we do the same thing that way. And then when all that's together, they should be really quite nice. If they were super long springs, you'd also put the same sort of thing but about halfway up just to stop it. Because what you don't want is these going all over the place. You don't want them slipping underneath the cover. Because once you start getting some upholstery on top of this, you can't get to it. So tie them in now, life is sweet and easy. As you can see, we've got all the springs in place now and they're all tied together, and as you move one they all move at the same time. So that's the springs done. If I've inspired you to have a go yourself, do keep in touch. I'll be very interested to see how you get on. The contact details are at the bottom of the screen, and I'll see you on the next video.